Hi YouTube, it's Kathy and this is my June 2024 reading wrap-up. If you're not already aware, I do weekly entertainment wrap-ups of everything I read, watch, and listen to, but today we're just talking about the books. I'm going to start with my nerdy hardcore stats and charts and then get into what I read. Also, I did a reading vlog of this entire month because this month was the Queer Lit Readathon, the major round that we have throughout the year. This was round 13, and at the same time I did another project where I ended up walking 150 miles. I used freedom units because so many people from the US watch my videos, but that's over 240 kilometers. I really suggest watching that vlog, not only because I go more in depth about the books in that vlog, but because I worked really hard on it and I think it came out pretty cool. So of course that will be linked down below. As a reminder, I will also be going over my bingo board from hell at the end of the video, so make sure to stay tuned for that. In June, I read 16 things for a total of 4,963 pages. That takes into account converting audiobook minutes to pages, so about 2,141 of those pages were actually about 70 hours of audio. The age breakdown for these books was 11 adult books, 3 middle grade books, and 2 YA books. I read 10 novels, 4 anthologies, and 2 graphic novels. This month, the biggest chunk of what I read was science fiction and fantasy, followed by horror, contemporary, historical fiction, romance, and nonfiction. If you adjust by page count, not much changes. More than half of these were from the library, but I also read some from independent and chain bookstores. I read 6 audiobooks, 4 hardcovers, 4 paperbacks, and 2 ebooks. The biggest chunk of my books were in the 200 to 399 page range, and most of them were published this decade. Over half of my reads were by female authors, with a good chunk from non-binary and mixed anthologies, and my protagonists, where applicable, were a mixed bag, but half were female. In terms of setting, over half were from the US, but I had books from Nigeria, Denmark, Canada, and other worlds. In terms of diversity of subject matter, everything was queer, but almost everything also fell into another category as well, which I love to see. In terms of star ratings, this month I had 1 3-star read, 1 3.5-star read, 8 4-star reads, 4 4.5-star reads, and 2 5-star reads. Let's start with our lowest rated read and work our way up to the highest, shall we? Additionally, I'm going to be very quick fire with this wrap-up because I've talked about these books not only in my weekly entertainment wrap-ups, but I've talked about them extensively in the vlog that I did for this month. So I'm not going to go into very much depth, but I am going to go through these books just to let you know what I read this month and a little bit of what I thought about them. My 3-star book for the month is Black on Both Sides. This one is a very academic text, which means that even though it's less than 200 pages when you take out the appendices, it took me over a week to read it. That being said, it does have a lot of valuable information, but it's not exactly what it says on the tin because I thought everything in this was going to be talking about trans people who happen to be black, but it talked a lot about things that had nothing to do with gender, and even though those were interesting when I understood what they were talking about, that wasn't what I thought I was going to be getting. My 3.5-star read this month was Queer 13. This was an anthology about these different gay and lesbian writers talking about their lives when they were about 7th grade, which is about 13 years old. This one was actually published in 1998, so some of the terminology in this might be a little bit outdated. And because of the time frame we're talking about, I spent a lot of time reading about the self-pleasuring details of teenage boys, which is something I didn't really need to read that much about. However, that's mostly the ace in me coming out going, sure, I'm happy you're happy. On to my 4-star reads, the first one being Rabbit Chase. This one is an indigenous retelling of Alice in Wonderland, and honestly, if that pitch doesn't get you to read it, I don't know what will, because that's what this is. It's a graphic novel, it's for a middle grade audience, and it's wonderful. Next we have Tarnished Are the Stars. We have 3 point of view characters in this one, and they eventually all work together to bring down the big bad. What's happening is the society has terraformed a new Earth, an Earth adjacent, if you will, and there's a little bit of power struggle going on because a lot of people who live outside of the society in the settlement here end up really sick, and we're trying to figure out why everybody eventually needs to have their hearts augmented by using actual clocks to actually continue living. Next we have Under the Udala Trees. This is one that was set in Nigeria during the 60s, 70s, and 80s, and during the first part of this book we're talking about when they had a civil war going on, which obviously devastated the family that we're talking about, and because of the actions during the Civil War, this family was broken up. This girl went off, she made a friend, she realized realized that friend was a little bit more than a friend. She was caught out. That's not great because Nigeria's laws were and are garbage when it comes to homosexuality, and we go from there. Next, we have Never Whistle at Night. This is an indigenous dark fiction anthology. It has 26 different stories. At least 2 of them were queer, so I counted 1 of them for the Queer Lit Readathon because I needed something to fit the night prompt, and you will see why if you watch my reading vlog. Being an anthology, I can't tell you really too much because obviously there were 26 different stories in this, but I did really enjoy my time with it. There were definitely some creepy things and some little twists here and there that I really appreciated. Next is another anthology, and that's It Came from the Closet. This one was different people reflecting on different horror movies and how they view them through a queer lens, or how they can be read as queer, or how they're definitely queer and they're letting you know about it, or they're just reflecting on their own lives and what horror media meant to them during that time frame. This definitely made me want to watch a lot of horror movies because even though my very first email address was horrorflickchick@hotmail.com. I don't check it anymore. There are so many that I haven't seen, but at the time frame I was the only one in my family that wanted to watch horror, so I was the only one getting horror movies from Blockbuster, and often I was overruled as to which movies we would be getting because I was the only one that wanted to watch the scary stuff. Next we have The Death I Gave Him. I started this one just before June, so I couldn't actually count it for the Queer Lit Readathon, but there ended up being a little bit of queer content in this, which I definitely talked about when I talked about it in my weekly wrap-up, so check that out if you need to. This one is a Hamlet retelling set in the future, also in Denmark, and set in a laboratory, and it's a little bit of a locked room murder mystery. Next we have The Skin and Its Girl, and along with Under the Udala Trees, this was the second of the group reads for the Queer Lit Readathon. This one was really interesting because the point of view character is this girl who, when she was born, turned blue, and at the exact same time this building that was in Palestine that used to be owned by her family was a casualty in an explosion, and the whole family has these theories as to whether she turned blue because the soap factory exploded, or if the soap factory exploded because she was born. This one has a lot to do with family history, and it was a challenging read, but also such a satisfying read to get through. Next we have The Z Word, and this is a queer zombie book, and obviously, again, if that doesn't catch you, I don't know what's going to. Our main character in this one starts off at a party that she doesn't really want to be at, but she sort of wants to be at because she hasn't seen her friends very much since she broke up with her girlfriend 6 months ago, but she's invited along to this party, and some weird things start happening because it's Pride weekend, and weird things always start happening. However, there's definitely nefarious capitalism things at play. This one gets a little bit tongue-in-cheek. This one also gets very gory in parts, and I enjoyed it. On to my 4.5-star reads, the first one being Snapdragon. This one is a middle grade graphic novel about this girl named Snapdragon, who at the very beginning is going to confront the town witch because she thinks the witch has stolen her dog. From there, we kind of figure out whether or not this person is actually a witch, and we also see this lovely friendship forming between the two of them because they're both really into kind of macabre things, and there's also a family history of this so-called witch, and somebody in her family in the past maybe being in a relationship. Next we have Small Game by Blair Braverman. This one is really interesting because it's set out as a reality show, kind of like Survivor, except for there's only 5 contestants, and they're dropped in these random woods. They don't have any idea where they are, and they're just supposed to survive for at least 6 weeks, and if you survive that long, you get $100,000, so obviously everyone is trying to fulfill this. However, this definitely doesn't go the way anybody planned, and that's all I can really say because I do not want to give too much away. Next we have Director's Cut, which is the romance that I read this month, and it was also published this month. This one is about this woman who is an actress in Hollywood. She's also just made her directorial debut, but she's also in academia, so she's got a PhD in like popular music studies or something like that. I can't exactly remember what it was, but she's trying to make this transition where she's going to be teaching some classes, and she goes to do that, and she thought she was going to be able to teach the whole class herself, and the person from the university was just kind of going to be there to do like the administrative stuff, but the person from the university thought that they were going to be teaching the classes together, so she basically has to learn how to share while she's trying to find out whether or not her directorial debut is going to get into any film festivals and whether or not she's going to have to be traveling for that. This one was fun. It had some great side characters, and I would be interested to read more by this author. Next we have Sheine Lende, which is the prequel to A Lot's Away, and this one takes place in about the 1970s, if I'm remembering or understanding correctly, in Texas, and obviously we're following one of A Lot's Away's ancestors and her whole story, which I feel like was briefly mentioned in A Lot's Way and then expanded for this book, and I absolutely adored it. I do not have enough time. Apparently while I've been standing here I got my 7,500 steps. I don't know how, because I've just been waving my arm around, but sure. I don't have enough time to tell you all of the awesome things that I love about this. All I can say is that Sheine is an absolute badass, and I love this whole adventure she goes on to save not only these missing kids, but also her mother. As for my 5-star books, the penultimate book on this list is Paige Not Found. This is a fantastic book about our main character, Paige, who is about 11 years old. And one day she's just trying to get her cat to come to bed with her, but she sees that her dad's laptop is open and an email comes in and it's got her name in the subject line. And when she opens it up, this email has a lot of information about what she did that day, like where she went and when certain things happened during her day. And she's like, this is weird, so she forwards it to herself and deletes that forward so her dad doesn't know. And through some investigation she does with her friend, she finds out that 5 years ago, when she thought she was getting a tonsillectomy, she actually got this thing called the dot, which is an implant that goes just behind your ear and actually monitors all of the things that you're doing throughout the day. And she's pretty sure her parents got this done without her knowing, shortly after she had a meltdown, because she is autistic and her dad in particular has some troubles around this. And the biggest problem, besides this trust being completely broken, is the fact that the people that make the dot are about to merge with a social media platform which is notorious for giving away people's information or selling people's information, and she did not consent to that. She makes some new friends along the way, and she's also got some gender and sexuality feelings that happen along the way, and it's just lovely. I've loved everything I've ever read by Jen Wilde. My favorite book that I read this month is Kaikeyi. This one is about this woman who is the eldest child to the Maharaja. However, since she's a girl, she's not going to inherit because that's not how it works. And as we're meeting her when she's about 12, her mother has been cast out of the kingdom, so she ends up having to do all these things around the palace to kind of run things, kind of do what her mom should have been doing if she was still there. She also really wishes there was a way that she could bring her mother back, so she's researching how to do that, and she ends up finding this form of magic that she can actually harness, in which she goes into something called the binding plane, and she can see all of these strings between her and other people, and depending on how thick those are and kind of the color of them, she can tell whether or not she's on good standing with those people, and she can kind of send emotions or thoughts through these lines. This book takes place over 20 or 30 years, so there's a lot that happens, but it is fantastic and also so aggravating at points because she just wants to do what's best for this kingdom and also another kingdom that she ends up joining, and sometimes people just don't listen to her because she happens to be a woman, and that's super frustrating. I know that this author has at least one other book, so I'm definitely going to look into seeing if I can pick up more by this author. Using some combination of these books, I actually blacked out the bingo board for the Queer Lit Readathon, so I'm just going to tell you which books covered which prompts, and I'm going to refer to my notes because my brain is Swiss cheese. First, for graphic, we have Rabbit Chase and Snapdragon, both cover this one. For the group reads, I read both of them, which is Under the Udala Tree and The Skin in Its Girl. For number in the title, that's Queer 13. For choose your own prompt, I decided that prompt had to do with musicals, so that was Director's Cut. For anthology, we have Never Whistle at Night, It Came from the Closet, Queer 13, and Black on Both Sides, so I definitely crossed that one out. For rainy day read, we have Tarnished Are the Stars. For night, we have Never Whistle at Night. For international, we have both Under the Udala Tree and The Skin in Its Girl. For Black history, we have Black on Both Sides. For immigrants, we have The Skin in Its Girl. For the great outdoors, we have Small Game. For mental health, we have Paige Not Found. For creepy, which was also the 13th square on the 13th round, which I thought was just the smartest thing we've ever done, honestly, we have It Came from the Closet. And also the Z word, even though that wasn't on my TBR. For non-European mythology, we have Kaikeyi. For continued, we have Paige Not Found. And for magic, we also have Kaikeyi. As for my bookish bingo board from hell, not too much moved, but I did get a little bit of movement on it, so this is what it looks like now. And I can tell you that the only things that changed were a couple more entries on the 400+ page book from Never Whistle at Night and Kaikeyi. For the pre-2000 square, I added Queer 13 because it's from 1998. And for the library TBR veterans, we have It Came from the Closet and Tarnished Are the Stars. Funnily enough, when everything shut down in 2020, I had Tarnished Are the Stars out from the library, and we weren't allowed to return library books for like 6 months. And did I get around to reading it? No. So it's definitely been on my list for a very, very long time. If you want to hear me talk more about these books or other books for that matter, the playlist, my weekly entertainment wrap-ups, is always linked down below. Also, that reading vlog is linked down below. Please check it out. I tried really, really hard to make it engaging and entertaining, and also I talk way more about these books in that video. If you've read any of these or now you're planning to read any of these, let me know about it down in the comments below. On the way down to the comments, if you hit that subscribe button, that would be very nice of you. If you don't feel like leaving a comment but want to make sure that I know you were here, just leave me an emoji emoji or a smiley face if you happen to be on your keyboard. Some people have asked if there's a way to financially support this channel, so I set up a Ko-fi account, which is a digital tipping service. The link for that, as always, is down below. You can like and share this as you see fit, and I will see you very soon. Bye!